My own son left me at a nursing home on my birthday. A week later, I won the lottery. I'm not telling this story to seek pity. I'm telling it because there are far too many people like me out there who've stayed silent for too long and have endured far more than they should have. My name is Evelyn Moore. I'm 62 years old and I live alone in a small house in a quiet town in Colorado. I once had a husband who loved me unconditionally, but he passed away 7 years ago, right there at our dinner table from a sudden heart attack. Since then, I've poured every ounce of love I had left into my only son, Zachary. Zach was the light of my life. The reason I got out of bed every morning. The only thing that kept me going on my darkest days. I always believed that no matter what happened, even if the whole world turned its back on me, my son wouldn't. But sometimes the very person you trust the most is the first to push you off the edge. That morning was my birthday. I woke up early and baked a blueberry cake, Zach's childhood favorite. I picked out the lavender cardigan he once said matched my eyes. I even spritzed on a bit of perfume and carefully did my hair, all because he had texted me, 12 p.m., I'm picking you up. Today, you're the star. I must have read that message at least 10 times. Each time, it warmed my heart a little more. At exactly 12:05, the doorbell rang. I opened it and there he was, standing with a bouquet of white daisies, their petals already wilting on one side. His face was familiar, but his eyes distant. "Happy birthday, Mom," Zach said, giving me a half-hearted hug, like he was checking something off a to-do list. I still smiled, still hugged him back, still clung to the hope that today I'd get to enjoy a warm, simple lunch with the only person I had left in the world. But instead of heading toward town, the car turned the opposite direction. I began to notice the empty roads, the dried-up fields. And then, the sign appeared. Silver Pines, private assisted living for seniors with special care needs. I thought I was seeing things. I let out a dry laugh and turned to him. "Zach, this isn't funny. What's going on?" He didn't answer right away. After a moment, he spoke. Slow, measured. "You can't keep living alone like this, Mom. This place is better for you. Safer." A chill ran down my spine. And it wasn't the weather. It was instinct. "I don't need to be here. I'm still sharp. There's nothing wrong with me." His hand stayed firmly on the steering wheel, eyes fixed forward. His voice went cold. "You don't remember how much you've forgotten, do you? You mixed up my birthday. You've called me thinking Dad was still alive. You left the gas on, Mom. You need supervision." I shook my head. "I'm not senile, Zach. I get tired sometimes, yes, but I haven't forgotten you. I've never forgotten you." But my protest meant nothing when the car stopped in front of the iron gates. And when he opened the trunk, my heart dropped. My suitcase was already packed. I hadn't prepared it. He had. "You went through my things without asking?" I whispered. Zach didn't respond. He just sighed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Every word out of his mouth felt like a knife. I stood there frozen, refusing to move. But then 2 staff members in white uniforms came out. One holding a clipboard, the other holding a stack of papers. A power of attorney document with my name on it, with my signature. But I had never signed it. They led me down a long hallway that reeked of antiseptic and sounded of squeaky wheelchair wheels grinding over old tiles. The whole place was bathed in blinding fluorescent light. And cold. So cold. My room had a single bed, pale cream-colored walls, and a window that faced nothing but a gray brick wall. No flowers, no birthday cake. Just a nameplate on the door that read, "Evelyn Moore, room 112C." I sat at the edge of the bed. I didn't take off my coat, didn't remove my shoes. Everything inside me went still, like I had just been locked in a sealed box labeled harmless. I didn't cry. Not then. The pain was too complete. There was no room left for tears. I unwrapped the bouquet Zach had brought. The daisies were limp, their petals browned at the edges. They looked exactly how I felt, wilted and helpless. That first night passed with the hum of someone's breathing machine down the hall and corridor lights that never turned off. I lay facing the wall, arms wrapped around myself, my mind spiraling with fragmented memories. Zach had planned everything. The suitcase, the documents, the reasons. Every piece of it had been carefully arranged, and I started to see it. Every missed sign. The way he avoided financial conversations. The way he exaggerated my smallest forgetful moments. The way his calls grew less frequent, colder. And now I understood. He didn't bring me here to be cared for. He brought me here to disappear. The next morning, I asked the nurse if I could use the phone to call home. She smiled gently and said, "Your son requested a temporary communication break so you could adjust to your new environment." Then she looked down and walked away. I asked again, "Where's my cell phone?" The answer came without hesitation. "Mr. Zachary deactivated the line and is keeping the phone for you. He said you tend to forget things and could easily be scammed." I could hardly breathe. In less than 24 hours, I had gone from being an independent woman to a case file number. Stripped of autonomy, stripped of choice. No phone, no keys, no voice. A week passed like that. I couldn't eat. Not out of protest, but because everything tasted flat. Like I'd lost not just my appetite, but my ability to believe in anything at all. The nurses here were kind, but it was a kind of scripted kindness. They called me sweetheart, dear, our little angel, as if I had already been grouped into a category of people who no longer served any purpose in life, other than waiting to be forgotten. No one asked what I used to do for work. No one knew I had once led the accounting team at a major logistics firm in Denver. No one knew I had cared for my dying husband on my own for 2 whole years while cancer ate away at him, piece by piece. All they saw was an old woman with quiet eyes, slightly trembling hands, and a silence that refused to argue. And I stayed silent until day 8. I was sitting in the common room that day when a new nurse walked in. A young black woman with neatly braided hair pinned into a bun. Her name tag read Nina. She scanned the room, then came over to take my blood pressure. As she leaned in, she whispered softly, "You're not like the others here." I looked at her, confused. "You're not forgetful. I see it in your eyes. You don't belong here." For the first time in days, I felt seen. I didn't cry, but I gripped her arm like it was the only life raft I had left. That evening, she brought me something unexpected, a worn-out lottery ticket folded into quarters. "It belonged to a man named Henry who passed away last week," she said with a half smile. "It was found tucked inside his Bible. No one claimed it, so I held on to it. Maybe it's lucky?" I laughed, a dry, half-broken sound. It was the first laugh I had allowed myself since I came here. Try my luck? While my son holds the entire fate of my life in his hands? I chuckled bitterly. Nina winked. "You never know. Maybe God has a different plan." I kept that ticket in my coat pocket the entire next day. I didn't check it. I didn't throw it away either. Part of me thought it was just another joke from the universe. But the part of me that hadn't completely withered away wanted to believe there might still be a way out. That night, after the nurses changed shifts and the hallways fell into quiet, I slipped out of my room. I wrapped a light scarf around me, walked slowly like an old woman might, careful not to draw attention. The computer lounge was still lit. I sat down at one of the 3 ancient desktops, took a deep breath, and typed in the numbers. My hands trembled. At first from the cold, then from fear. Because the screen read, "Congratulations, your ticket matches all 6 numbers. Jackpot. $18 million, I froze." My heart pounded like a war drum. Not from joy, but from pure, paralyzing fear. If Zach ever found out I had that kind of money, he would never let me go. He had thrown his own mother into a care facility without blinking. What would he do for $18 million? I closed the browser, shut down the screen, walked slowly back to my room. Once inside, I sat on the bed, grabbed a scrap of paper, and scribbled. Trust no one. Don't call Zach. I have to get out. I folded the note and the ticket and hid them deep inside the lining of my old cotton bra, where no one would think to look. Carefully, silently, securely. The next morning, while Nina was checking my vitals, I whispered, "Do you know someone discreet? Someone who can help me find a lawyer?" She looked at me, didn't ask why, and simply nodded. 3 days later, I met David Kessler, a young attorney who volunteered at the facility once a month to help elderly residents with legal documents. We spoke in a dusty meeting room under a faded portrait of the center's founder. "Can you help me disappear?" I asked. David stared at me for a few seconds, unblinking, then nodded slowly. "We'll need to move fast, very fast." I gave him the ticket, on one condition: my name stays hidden. No public claim, no headlines. Everything, bank accounts, trust funds, phone, address, must be created under a completely different name. I didn't want Zach to have even a cent of this. I had already lost enough. David worked with a precision that felt almost unreal. David was so efficient and discreet that I almost didn't believe he was real. Within a week, I had a new identity as Helen Fraser, a special trust account, an unregistered phone, and a temporary address in another state. I didn't say goodbye. I couldn't. Every farewell in my life had already been too bitter. Instead, I left one note in the drawer of my nightstand, addressed to Nina. "Thank you for seeing me. Not everyone has the courage to look at the truth." I left Silver Pines at dawn, dressed in an old tracksuit that had belonged to another resident who had since moved out. I took nothing but a cloth tote bag, my new documents, and a worn wallet. I didn't know where I was going, only that I wasn't coming back. The bus took me past fog-covered hills away from the town. I sat by the window, hood pulled low, fingers gripping the strap of my bag. Every bump on the road made my heart jump. I didn't feel free. I felt pain and cold. But at least now, I had a choice. I had a voice. And for the first time in years, I was no longer being controlled. I rented a small house on the outskirts of Wyoming, a place where no one knew who I was, far from the city, with no nosy neighbors, just the sound of wind rustling through the dried-up fields and the crackle of the fireplace in the cold nights of early winter. I started living like a ghost. No social media accounts. No contact with anyone except David, the lawyer who had helped me escape. I didn't use my real name. I didn't sign anything with my old handwriting. I left no trace. Every step, every move was calculated, because I knew one thing. If Zach found out I was still alive and had money, he'd come for me. I began to recall fragments of memory I had buried deep. Things I hadn't wanted to admit to myself. Now suddenly came into focus, clearer, and more terrifying than ever. Zach hadn't changed overnight. He used to be the child who clung to me after nightmares, who hid cookies in his pocket to share with a classmate. But when he turned 17, I started noticing things that felt off. Little lies, missing bills from my wallet, strange credit card charges. I had once thought maybe he was grieving his father. But now, sitting alone in that cold, quiet house, I realized the truth. Zach never really loved anyone but himself. He didn't crave care. He craved control. And I had handed him every weapon he needed to hurt me. One Monday morning, with my voice hoarse from another sleepless night, I called David. "Can you help me check old financial records?" I asked. "I need to know what really happened." David didn't ask why. He sent me a list of steps: legal authorizations to retrieve bank histories, loan records, and signed documents involving both me and my late husband. A week later, a thick envelope arrived. I spent hours sitting at the table, reading every page, and what I discovered numbed me to the bone. Zach had forged both mine and my husband's signatures on a major loan 9 years ago. The money was supposedly for a tech startup, but in reality, he used it to cover gambling debts and personal luxuries. That same year, my husband stopped talking about our finances. I thought he was too tired from illness. But now I understood. He knew, and he stayed silent. Maybe hoping Zach would change, or maybe just trying to protect me from the most devastating truth a mother could face. After he died, everything transferred to my name. Zach kept borrowing, this time using my personal information to forge mortgage applications, create shell companies, and pull unsecured loans from multiple banks. I found contracts signed Evelyn Moore. The signature was identical to mine, but too perfect. Too steady. Not the trembling hand of a woman exhausted from caregiving. Not mine. I gripped the folder so tightly my fingernails left marks in the paper. I had raised a con man under my own roof, but I didn't cry. I had no tears left for Zach. Instead, I started collecting everything I would need to take him down. I cataloged every piece of evidence, numbered each file, locked them in a fireproof box beneath the floorboards near the bedroom. I even recorded my own statement. Slow, steady, clear. So that if I ever couldn't speak for myself, my voice would still remain. David told me to wait. "We need the right moment," he said. "If we move now, he'll sense it. He'll strike back." I nodded. But inside me, a fire had already begun to burn. I was done hiding. I was ready to fight. And then, the moment arrived. Late one afternoon, while browsing local news through a VPN under my new identity, I saw the headline, "Man pleads for help. My mother's been missing for weeks. She could be in danger. Please help us find her." Attached was a photo of me on my 60th birthday. Lavender cardigan, sparkling eyes, a soft, full smile. Zach stood beside me in the picture, his arm around my shoulder, looking into the camera like the world's most devoted son. I gripped the mouse, bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. He was still performing, and the world was still buying it. Hundreds of comments poured in beneath the article. People praised him. "Such a good son," one wrote. "If I had a child like that, I'd live 10 years longer." I let out a laugh, a hollow sound. No echo, no emotion. I knew exactly what this meant. Zach was getting nervous. He knew I could speak up at any moment. So now he was building a wall of public sympathy, a moral shield. Because if I did come forward, I'd be labeled as delusional, emotionally unstable, or mentally deteriorating. I wasn't his mother anymore. I was a legal liability. The final obstacle between him and the fortune he believed was his. And I knew he would come. Not with violence, but with paperwork. A week after the article about the devoted son of a missing mother went live, I received an overnight delivery. A summons from the Jefferson County Court where I used to live. Zachary Moore had filed a petition to have me legally declared mentally incompetent. The stated reason? Signs of paranoia, disorientation, and susceptibility to manipulation by malicious individuals. The supporting documents included clipped audio from old calls, my voice trembling and exhausted, crying. Zach had repackaged my pain as proof that I was emotionally unstable. There was also a letter from a psychologist I had never even met, claiming I showed signs of delusion and persecution anxiety. I wasn't surprised, just empty. That night, I called David. His voice dropped. "We fight back. We have no other choice." Everything after that moved like a storm. David contacted Dr. Laura Bennett, a trusted, independent neurologist, to conduct a full cognitive evaluation. In 3 hours, she asked me about my childhood, marriage, finances, faith, and even the book I had been reading the night before. Her final report read, patient is fully lucid, with sharp reflexes, logical thinking, and stable emotional regulation. No signs of cognitive impairment or memory loss. I signed a legal response, prepared by David, along with the medical report, financial records, and a sworn statement. In it, I declared that Zachary Moore had attempted to fraudulently seize my assets by manipulating legal and medical systems meant to protect vulnerable seniors. The court hearing was set for 2 weeks later. 2 weeks of living under pressure. News, lawyers, paperwork. 2 weeks where every night I lay in silence, listening to the wind slip through the cracks of the window frame, imagining Zach's face when he would see me walk into the courtroom. And then, the day came. I walked into courtroom number 3 of the Jefferson County Courthouse, wearing a pale gray outfit and a thick wool coat. No makeup, no heels, just a folder in my hand, and eyes that no longer knew fear. Zach was already there. He turned around, and for a split second, I saw shock in his eyes. But it was quickly replaced with his usual performance, his mask of concerned son just doing the right thing. His lawyer spoke first, a stream of accusations and half-truths. The missing mother, the mental instability, the woman who once forgot her son's birthday, suspicious money movements while she was in hiding. Then Zach was called to the stand. His voice trembled. My mom used to be so sharp. But these last few years, she forgets things. She mistrusts everyone. I just want her to be safe. I worry about her. I said nothing, just looked straight at him. Then it was my turn. I stepped up, calm, still. I handed the judge the full medical report from Dr. Laura Bennett. She was chosen by the court, not by me. She has no reason to lie. Then I presented the evidence. One by one, forged signatures, fraudulent loans, bank transactions I never authorized. I pointed to each line. Steady, clear. And then I said, my son doesn't want me safe. He wants me gone. He put me in that home. He faked legal documents. He tried to convince the world I had lost my mind. But I'm still here. And I am more clear-headed than I have ever been. And this time, I will not stay silent. For a moment, the room fell into stillness. The judge leaned back in his chair, tapped the folder with his fingers, then said, based on the evidence presented, the direct testimony, the independent medical evaluation, and the validity of financial records, the court hereby declares, Mrs. Evelyn Moore is of sound mind and full legal capacity. All financial and legal rights are fully restored. The petition filed by the plaintiff is denied. This hearing is concluded. I didn't cry. I quietly gathered my papers, stood up, and walked out. Zach remained behind me. He didn't call my name, because he knew he had lost the one thing that gave him power, control. But I knew this wasn't over, not for him and not yet for me. After the trial, I didn't go home. I rented a small room in a countryside motel 2 hours away, where no one knew me, where no memories lingered. I spent 3 days doing nothing but breathing. Breathing the way you do when you're finally free. No more checking over my shoulder. No more fear when I logged into a bank account. No more flinching at the sound of a doorbell. Just me. A cup of hot tea. An old book on a wooden table. And a stray cat that decided I was worth keeping. 3 days later, I got a call from David. His voice was low. Zach is under investigation. Someone, he didn't say who, sent a complete set of documents to the Department of Justice, enough to open a full case. I didn't say it was me. He didn't ask. He just said, if this moves forward, justice will come. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel angry. I just felt peace. I started writing, not to expose Zach, but to remind myself of everything I had survived. I wrote about the years I raised him alone. The first time I noticed the shift in his eyes. The little dream I had. to watch my son grow into a good man, a dream I now had to let go of. But in those pages, I saw something else. I didn't break. I had been betrayed, robbed, silenced, made invisible. But I still stood. And I wouldn't stop there. 1 month later, I officially founded the Evelyn Foundation, a legal and emotional support fund for elderly victims of financial abuse by their own families. No press release, no media fanfare, just quiet partnerships with senior centers, lawyers who cared, a 24/7 anonymous hotline. Because I knew there were others like me, unseen, unheard, and unsure of who to call for help. I couldn't heal my past. But maybe I could be the first hand reaching out to someone else before they let go. 2 months after the hearing, a small news article appeared online. Tech entrepreneur Zachary Moore officially indicted for financial fraud, document forgery, and elder asset theft. Damages estimated in the millions, investigation expanding. I read the article in silence. No TV, no phone call, no celebration, just one long exhale. Then I wrote in my journal, "Justice doesn't always arrive quickly, but it still arrives, like the sun after a winter that lasted too long." One early spring morning, I returned to Silver Pines, the place that once felt like my prison. I didn't call ahead. But as I stepped into the hallway, Nina saw me. She knew me immediately. We hugged tightly. No words. Everything had changed. New curtains on the windows, bright paintings on the walls. But what surprised me most was a small reading room titled The Helen Fraser Library. They had kept the name I once used to survive. To them, it became a symbol of courage. That day, I stood before 15 seniors and several staff members and told my story. I said, "I'm not standing here because I'm stronger than anyone else. I'm standing here because once I had no one standing beside me. And I don't want any of you to go through that ever again." There were tears. A frail woman with silver hair held my hand tightly. Someone whispered, "I thought I was invisible forever." That summer, I moved into a small house in Idaho, near the pine woods, far from the noise. I planted lavender by the fence, adopted an old abandoned dog, and finally, I slept through the night. Zach sent me a letter, handwritten, just a few short lines. "You believed in me more than I believed in myself, and I betrayed that belief. I'm sorry, but I understand. You don't need apologies anymore." I didn't write back, not because I didn't forgive him, but because I had already chosen forgiveness in my own way, by moving on and no longer carrying the weight of what couldn't be changed. I burned the letter in my fireplace. The flame rose quickly, then faded. Software, like a final part of me being set free. I didn't need the world to see me. I just needed to stop hiding from myself. And that, to me, is the greatest victory. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever been seen as weak, invisible, or pushed out of your own life, please remember, you can always rewrite your next chapter. And I'm living proof of that. Because sometimes what we need is not someone to rescue us, but a chance to rescue ourselves. If you've ever experienced something like this, don't be afraid to share it in the comments. Your story deserves to be heard. This is her side of the story, where we tell the stories others often ignore. Thank you for staying until the end. We'll see you in the next video.